You're just a guest here, not family." That was the last thing my cousin Vivian said to me before she had security throw me out of the Langston estate, barefoot, holding nothing but my laptop bag and a broken heart. I'm Callie Reyes. I was raised by my aunt and uncle, Vivian's parents, after my mom passed away when I was 8. My dad wasn't in the picture, and the Langstons were the only family I had left. From the outside, they were the definition of grace and prestige. High society philanthropists, owners of the Langston Care Network, a chain of luxury retirement homes across Southern California. But behind those manicured hedges and award-winning smiles, it was all curated lies, cover-ups, and carefully engineered illusions. Vivian was their crown jewel. Blonde, brilliant, med school graduate. At least, that's what everyone believed. She walked through life like a spotlight followed her. I was the shadow she tolerated, the orphan charity case they couldn't quite hide but wished they could forget. Still, I stayed. I studied hard, got into tech, worked late nights on coding projects, and landed a remote job in cybersecurity by the time I was 21. I never asked for much. I just wanted to belong. Then came the Langston Gala, a yearly fundraiser hosted at their estate. I wasn't supposed to be part of the planning, but one of Vivian's assistants had messed up the guest access controls for the health data of several VIP donors, people who expected total privacy when booking care through the Langston network. Vivian panicked. She pulled me aside in the middle of the ballroom, her heels clicking against the marble like gunshots. "Fix it!" she hissed, shoving a tablet in my hand. I glanced at the screen. The files had been downloaded from an unsecure line, something even a basic admin should have caught. I told her I could patch the vulnerability, but I couldn't make it disappear. The logs were already stored on the servers. That's when her mask slipped. "You've always been a problem," she snapped. "This family took you in out of pity, and now you're going to repay us by ruining everything?" I opened my mouth to argue, but my uncle appeared behind her like a silent threat. "You'll fix it," he said coldly, "and you'll sign this." He handed me a printed NDA and a liability form. My name was already typed in. I froze. "This isn't legal," I whispered. He shrugged. "Neither is what you just did to our client's data." I didn't sign. Instead, I packed a bag that night and left, thinking I could at least keep my dignity. I was wrong. The next morning, my phone lit up with headlines. "Langston whistleblower leaks private medical records." My photo, my name, my job title. They blamed me for everything. I lost my job within 24 hours. My LinkedIn, my socials, flooded with hate. Vivian released a public statement calling me a deeply troubled relative who had hacked into confidential records out of jealousy and resentment. She even claimed I was mentally unstable. I had nothing. No home, no income, no way to fight back. So I disappeared. I took the last of my savings and moved into a rundown sublet above a print shop in East San Diego. I stopped using my real name, got a gig fixing local business networks, and started sleeping with pepper spray under my pillow. Months passed. I stayed quiet. I kept my head down. Until last week, a brown envelope showed up at my mailbox. No return address. Just my name in messy, blocky handwriting. Inside was a USB drive and a single note. "Stay quiet, or next time it won't just be your career that disappears." I plugged the drive into an old laptop. The video was grainy, time-stamped from last month. It showed me, or someone who looked like me, arguing with an elderly man at one of the Langston facilities. The audio was muffled, but the captions weren't. Callie Reyes caught verbally abusing patients. It was doctored. Badly. But the kind of bad that the internet eats alive. My stomach turned cold. They weren't just protecting their reputation. They were building a new story, one where I was the monster and they were the victims. I closed the laptop, hands trembling. And that's when I knew. They weren't going to stop. Not until I was erased. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my tiny kitchen table, lights off, the only glow coming from the laptop in front of me. The fake video still looped on screen. Me, or someone meant to be me, yelling at a man in a hospital gown. It was low quality enough that most people wouldn't question it, just convincing enough to ruin what little I had left. The fear sat in my chest like a brick, not just for me, but for what they'd do next. If Vivian had gone this far to ruin me, what else was she capable of? The next morning, I walked to the corner cafe I sometimes used for work. Wi-Fi was stronger than in my apartment. But when I sat down and opened my laptop, I couldn't focus. The note, the video, the threat. It all spun in my head like a storm with no eye. By noon, I had made a decision. If they were going to treat me like a criminal, maybe it was time I acted like one. Not in the way they wanted. I wasn't going to play dirty or stoop to their level. But I was done hiding. I was done letting them script my life like I was some background character in their perfect narrative. I started making calls, quiet ones. I reached out to an old coworker from my cybersecurity job, someone I hadn't talked to since everything blew up. His name was Felix. He didn't ask questions, just listened as I told him what happened. When I mentioned the video, he said, "Send it to me." That night, I did. And 2 days later, he called back. "It's deep fake," he said bluntly. "The audio is stitched from old voice memos. Your face is mapped from Facebook photos, and the original footage is of someone else entirely. I can show you where they blended it." He paused. "Callie, this wasn't just some amateur hack. Someone paid a lot of money to make this." I felt my stomach drop. They'd invested in destroying me. Over the next week, Felix helped me trace where the file had come from. We couldn't pin it directly to Vivian, yet, but the IP trails and data stamps led back to a server associated with the Langston Foundation, their charity arm, the same one that hosted all their gala events and accepted donations from wealthy clients. I'd stumbled into something bigger than I thought. But then, it got worse. One Thursday afternoon, I stopped by the bookstore where I sometimes picked up odd jobs. The manager, Elena, had always been kind. She even offered me cash under the table when no one else would hire me. When I walked in, she looked up from the register. Her expression wasn't kind this time. It was tight, guarded. "Callie, can we talk in the back?" I followed her, my heart pounding. She closed the door gently. "I got a call this morning from someone claiming to be a private investigator. They asked if I knew you were using a fake identity, that you were under investigation for elder abuse." I couldn't breathe. "I told them it was ridiculous," she said quickly. But then, an hour later, I got a visit from a health department rep. They asked about our connection to you. My mouth went dry. "I'm sorry, but I can't have this place get caught in the crossfire. You understand?" I nodded slowly. I didn't cry. Not then. I just walked out into the late afternoon sun, numb. Another place I thought was safe, gone. Another thread cut. They weren't just trying to silence me. They wanted to make sure no one believed me, that I had nowhere to land. That night, I walked the streets of East San Diego until long after dark. I ended up on a bench outside a boarded-up laundromat, legs shaking, heart hollow. That's when I saw him. A man leaning against a street lamp, hoodie pulled low. He glanced at me, then looked again. "Callie?" I blinked. "Marcus?" Marcus Langston, Vivian's cousin on the other side of the family, the black sheep, the one who'd vanished after a scandal no one ever talked about, the one they called unstable. He walked over slowly, hands in his pockets. "I didn't expect to see you here," he said, "but maybe it's fate." I stared at him. "Why?" He leaned in, voice low. "Because I have something you need to see. Something about Vivian, about the foundation." My heart stuttered in my chest. He smiled, just barely. "They used you, Callie, and I can prove it." I didn't follow Marcus right away. I stared at him for a long second, heart pounding, unsure if this was another setup. But the way he looked at me, tired, wary, like someone who'd also been burned, I trusted that more than words. We sat in the back of an old diner off El Cajon Boulevard, the kind of place that smelled like burned coffee and overcooked bacon. Marcus kept glancing over his shoulder, like someone might be watching. He didn't waste time. "You ever hear of Haven Link?" he asked. I shook my head. It's a shell charity, supposedly helps fund hospice care for low-income seniors. He slid a folded sheet of paper across the table. "Except there are no patients, no facilities, just donation trails that disappear into offshore accounts." I unfolded the paper. Bank statements, wire transfers. The sender? The Langston Foundation. The recipient? Haven Link International, registered under the name Callie Reyes. My blood ran cold. That's not mine," I whispered. "I know," Marcus said, "but on paper you co-founded the nonprofit. There are signatures, tax IDs, enough to send you to prison if the IRS ever looks into it." He looked up at me then, eyes burning. "They didn't just ruin your name, they stole it." I pressed a hand to my mouth, trying to keep it together. "Why are you helping me?" He let out a humorless laugh. "Because they did the same thing to me. Vivian framed me for insider trading back in 2014. My career tanked. I've been ghosting in and out of temp jobs since." We sat in silence for a long time. Eventually, he leaned forward. "I've been watching them, collecting documents. Quietly. I didn't think I'd ever use it, but then I saw what they did to you." He pulled a flash drive from his coat pocket. "This has everything," he said. "Emails, fake filings, donation laundering, even internal memos with your name attached." I took it with shaking hands. That night, I barely slept. I stared at that flash drive like it was a bomb waiting to go off. And in a way, it was. The next morning, I met up with Felix. We went through the files together, page after page of forged contracts, doctored emails, Vivian's voice in a leaked recording. "She'll never fight back. She's too scared. That's what makes her useful." Useful? That word stuck in my throat like poison. We compiled the documents, lined up the timeline, and drafted a strategy. Felix knew a law firm that specialized in white-collar fraud, Quinn and Marlowe. He sent the first inquiry that afternoon. I thought I'd feel relief, like maybe this nightmare had an end. Instead, the walls started shaking. The very next day, Mara, the woman who ran the corner cafe I sometimes worked from, found me on the street, panic on her face. "You need to come with me, now!" I followed her into the back office. She locked the door, then handed me an envelope. "I think this was meant for someone else," she said, "but it had your name on it." Inside were glossy, high-resolution photos. Me, Marcus, Felix. One showed me handing Marcus the flash drive. Another showed us outside the law office. Each photo was labeled with a single line in red marker. "Keep digging and you'll end up buried." My hands trembled. "They're watching me," I whispered. Mara nodded. "You need to be careful, Callie. This isn't just reputation anymore. This is dangerous." For a second, the fear almost won. But then I remembered Vivian's voice. "She's too scared. That's what makes her useful." Not anymore. I took a breath. I'm not backing down. I left the cafe, clutching the photos, my mind spinning with questions. How far were they willing to go? What else had they buried under my name? When I got home, I checked my mailbox. Inside was a plain white envelope, no stamp, no return address. I opened it. Inside was a printed copy of a scholarship cancellation notice, but it wasn't for me. It was for Nico Reyes, my younger brother, the only family I had left. He'd just started college last fall. I was helping him pay for books. He was the first in our family to get a full-ride scholarship. The notice said his financial aid was pulled due to conflicts of interest and verified misconduct within immediate family. My throat closed. Vivian hadn't just come for me. She was coming for my blood. Comment the number 1 if you want to see how far Vivian is willing to go, and how I plan to take everything back. I stared at the scholarship letter like it was a detonator. They weren't just trying to silence me anymore. They were punishing everyone who stood too close. Nico had nothing to do with this. He was a freshman biology major who still called to ask how long to boil eggs. And now his future was collateral damage in Vivian's war. That was it. The line had been crossed. No more playing defense. I called Felix, then Marcus, then Quinn and Marlowe. We go public, I told them. No more hiding. Felix hesitated. Once we do that, it's all-out war. I looked at the photos again. Me, Marcus, Felix, all marked, all threatened. Then let's make sure we don't miss. We spent the next 2 weeks preparing everything. Marcus and I met late nights in borrowed office spaces, going through every file, every transaction. Felix traced digital fingerprints back to fake nonprofits, deepfake labs, and dummy corporations tied directly to Vivian's personal accounts. We had forged documents, false tax filings, audio recordings, witness statements, everything. Quinn and Marlowe moved fast. They filed official complaints to the IRS, Department of Justice, and even California's State Board of Medical Examiners. Because here's the kicker. Vivian never graduated from med school. She had been posing as Dr. Vivian Langston for years, giving interviews, appearing on panels, collecting trust from thousands of people, all based on forged credentials. The files Marcus had saved proved it beyond doubt. She'd even faked her diploma using my name. I felt a cold kind of rage settle into my bones. It didn't burn anymore. It focused. Then we got the invitation. Vivian's Philanthropist of the Year Award Gala, held at the Grand Sorella Ballroom. Black tie. Hundreds of high society guests. Sponsored by the Langston Foundation. The perfect public facade. It was the perfect place to burn it all down. We sent anonymous packages to 3 major news outlets 2 days before the event. Inside, encrypted USBs containing everything. Every file. Every forgery. Every fake donation trail. With instructions. Wait until the gala begins. Then I sent my RSVP. I showed up in a simple black dress. No glitter, no heels. Just calm, steady steps and eyes that no longer belonged to the girl they tried to erase. The ballroom sparkled. Chandeliers, live string quartet, curated laughter bouncing off crystal. Vivian stood at the center in emerald silk, all teeth and charm, shaking hands like a queen. She spotted me halfway through the cocktail hour. For a moment, her smile faltered. Then she recovered. "Well," she said, brushing air kisses toward my cheek. "I thought you'd disappeared." I smiled back. "You should know by now. I don't vanish that easily." She raised an eyebrow. "Still clinging to the past, Callie?" I leaned in close enough that only she could hear. "No, Vivian, I'm about to bury it." Her eyes narrowed. I stepped back, gave her a small nod, and walked away. At 8 p.m., the event began. The host introduced Vivian with the usual list of lies: humanitarian work, medical expertise, tireless community service. She stepped up to the mic. Spotlight on her. All eyes watching. I slipped into the control booth at the back. Felix was already waiting. "Ready?" he asked. I nodded. He hit play. The projector behind the stage flickered. Vivian paused mid-speech as the first slide appeared. Dr. Vivian Langston. Medical license, non-existent. Gasps echoed across the room. The next slides rolled out like gunfire. Fake diplomas, wire transfers to shell charities, donation fraud, offshore accounts, and finally, a full timeline of how my name had been used in identity scams across multiple financial filings. Whispers turned into shouts. Phones came out. Reporters stood up. The entire ballroom erupted. Vivian stared at the screen, frozen. Then I saw it. Her fiancé, Eli Camden, heir to a medical tech empire, standing at the edge of the crowd, staring at her, his face pale. He stepped back, pulled something from his jacket, a flash of white, papers, divorce papers. He handed them to her without a word and walked out. Vivian's microphone was still live. She turned to the crowd, her voice cracking. This is all fabricated. She's lying." I stepped into the spotlight slowly. "No, Vivian, you did this, and now the world knows." Security approached. One of them leaned in to whisper something. She went white. The whisper? Federal agents were waiting outside. She staggered back from the mic, and that's when I delivered the final blow. I pulled a photo from my purse, held it up. It was Nico in his dorm, holding the scholarship notice. This isn't just about me. You came after my brother, my family, my future. The crowd fell silent. And Vivian? She fainted on stage. The moment Vivian hit the floor, the ballroom erupted into chaos. Some guests rushed to help her, others backed away, phones already filming. But I didn't move. I stood there beneath the chandelier light, calm in the eye of a storm I had spent years preparing. Security cleared the stage. Paramedics rushed in. But just as they lifted her off the floor, the ballroom doors swung open. Federal agents entered with grim faces and clipped voices. Vivian Langston, you are under arrest for wire fraud, identity theft, and obstruction of justice. She came to just in time to hear it. Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused at first, then wide with panic. The agents read her rights as the cameras rolled. The headlines practically wrote themselves. I stepped down from the stage as they led her away in cuffs. Our eyes met one last time. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. She just looked at me like she finally understood. I wasn't scared of her anymore. Over the next few weeks, the story exploded. Vivian's fake medical degree, the shell charities, the offshore accounts. It all became public record. The Langston Foundation collapsed under federal investigation. Every corporate partnership cut ties. Their once revered family name became synonymous with scandal. I didn't hide. I didn't run. I sat for one interview, just one. I didn't drag her name through the mud. I didn't need to. I told the truth. I told them about how I was taken in as a child, treated like an outsider, used as a scapegoat, and then discarded the moment I refused to play along. I spoke calmly, clearly. The interviewer asked me what I wanted from all of this. I said, I didn't want revenge. I wanted my name back. But the truth? I got both. Vivian was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. No bail, no special treatment. The judge called her a calculated predator who manipulated both public trust and private family ties for personal gain. Her medical title was officially revoked, even though it had never been real to begin with. And my brother Nico? His scholarship was reinstated within a week. The board issued a public apology. He framed it and hung it in his dorm room. But it wasn't just about clearing my name. It was about reclaiming my life. I rebuilt my digital security business from the ground up. With Felix as CTO and Marcus as CFO, we launched ClearTrace, a platform to help victims of identity fraud and deepfake abuse restore their online lives. Within a year, we landed 2 major government contracts and were featured in a national tech publication. People started calling me the whistleblower who rebuilt her name, but I wasn't interested in labels. One rainy afternoon, I found myself walking past the old Langston estate, now fenced off, the windows boarded up, grass overgrown. It looked like a forgotten monument, a ghost of everything that once tried to destroy me. I didn't go inside. I just stood there in the drizzle, staring at the place where it all began. The place that taught me one brutal, beautiful truth. No one can steal your story if you're the one brave enough to tell it. And I told mine. To anyone who ever felt powerless. To anyone who's been betrayed by the people who were supposed to protect them. To anyone who's been rewritten by someone else's lies. This is your reminder. You can fight back. You can stand tall, even when everything around you tries to bury you. You don't need permission to reclaim your truth. You just need the fire to say, not anymore. And that fire? It saved my life. Comment the number 1 if you made it this far. And if you want to see more stories like this, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Real stories, real revenge, right here.